Today's video is going to be fun. Like I love this stuff. We're gonna take a trip down memory lane, take a look at some products when they first started, right? Some products we all use so much today, and we're going to see how they evolved over time. And the whole point in doing this, besides it's fun to look at, is to encourage you, the developer out there, to launch your product. Like we're all probably working on a side project or something, and maybe it's not quite ready yet. Well, the point of this video is to encourage you to get it out there, get it in customers' hands as soon as possible, and start evolving over time, just like these major products did. All right, let's get into looking at some of these companies here. Let's start with Twitter. So as you can see, vastly different, right? Logo and colors, completely different. The name's not even fully spelled. If you look over here on the right, like you had to actually text a phone number, your update, for it to go to Twitter, right? And that's pretty different than it is now. Not to mention some of the core features that you use today on Twitter, the @ symbol, the hashtag, the retweet. Those weren't features that Twitter thought of and put out there. Those were features that the users started using organically on their own to communicate with each other. And then over time, Twitter was like, okay, yeah, we'll provide official support. For example, the hashtag and the retweet, right? Those are very fundamental to Twitter today. They didn't get in until 2009. Twitter launched in 2006. So 3 full years after launch, that's when the hashtag and the retweet became like official. 3 years. Again, products evolve. Next, let's look at Instagram. As you can see, this TechCrunch article from way back in 2012, the headline says, with over 30 million users on iOS, Instagram finally comes to Android. Now, it's probably an anomaly waiting so long to go to Android, but the point is, I think a lot of developers out there think on day one, when they launch, they need iOS, Android, like all platforms possible. And no, you can start off small and slowly grow over time. But again, this is probably excessive, like 30 million users before you support Android. But again, this is a common path where you support iOS, kind of work out all the kinks there, and then port it over to Android. Not every app is like that, but that's pretty common. But let's talk a little bit about how Instagram evolved. Never mind like Bourbon and being a location service. This was a completely different product, but let's focus on just like the pictures. For the longest time, you could only do 4x3 squares. Even something as small as doing like landscape 16:9 photos, like that didn't come until years later. Video on Instagram came years later, let alone like stories and what you see today, culminating in like the latest Reels like update. But the point is here too is like, don't compare the app you're making to something that's been in development for 5 to 10 years and has had tons of engineers on it, right? You're one engineer launching your app for the first time, right? So again, start small. Next, let's look at Twitch, or it used to be called Justin TV. And real quick, these Twitch and Airbnb examples are courtesy of a YouTube video by the startup school, Y Combinator. Highly recommend checking out that video. This one in particular is called like Planning an MVP. Talks a lot about the stuff I'm talking about right now. But if you want to dive into that, I'll have a link in the description. It's like 25 minutes long, but it's so good. Anyway, look at Twitch, or again, Justin TV. You didn't have a bunch of different Twitch channels. Like it was Justin. If you didn't want to watch Justin, sorry, go somewhere else, right? There's no video games, just video and chat just for Justin, right? Of course, gaming came, years later, and then it grew and evolved from there. Next up, Airbnb. Look how dead simple the site is. And one thing that really shocked me when I heard this was there was no payment system. There was no way to pay the host, right? All Airbnb did was connect the two, the host and the guest, and then they would have to work out, the cash payment or however they wanted to accept that, like on their own. That's crazy to think about now. And there was no map view to like see where it was. And initially Airbnb, as you can see, was coded part-time. It wasn't even like a full-time thing. And something I want to bring up that applies to all these apps, and credit to this Y Combinator video, the presenter is the one that actually brought that up, but it was very insightful. He basically said, like, do you remember when any of your favorite apps launched? Like, look at your phone, TikTok, Airbnb, Twitch, Facebook, whatever you use all the time, Twitter. There was no big splashy launch. So again, this is a message to like those developers out there that may think they have to have a big splashy launch and have thousands of users from day one. You don't remember when any of your favorite apps that you use every day launched. So don't put so much emphasis on the launch. Now, of course, nothing is absolute. I'm sure there's exceptions where a big launch makes sense, but it's definitely the minority, not the norm. But let's do 2 more quick ones because I'm sure you're getting the point by now. If you look at Uber, it was called Uber Cab. It was only in San Francisco, and you had to order like a professional black car or limo, right? There was no regular everyday Uber drivers, right? It was a professional driver. So again, a very narrow niche that grew and expanded slowly. And then famously, we have Facebook. Everybody kind of knows this one, right? It started off only on Harvard and then slowly expanded to 2 or 3 more schools, then more schools and more schools, and then eventually everybody And you may not remember, like Facebook in the beginning didn't have photos, right? There was all these extra features like just slowly came over time. So again, the whole point is that products evolve over time. Get your product out there into the customer's hands as soon as possible and start that evolution of your product. And who knows, maybe one day you'll be super successful and you'll get to look back and be like, wow, look at what the first version of my product was. That's hilarious. And now look what it's grown to. So hopefully this video motivated you to just ship it, get it out there, and we'll see you in the next video.